Welcome to the Blood Brothers podcast. We have the full three of us tonight. It's myself, Rob Parker, and Chris McDonald.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are joined this evening by not only a writer, but also a publisher. We're joined by the delightful Phoebe Morgan, editorial director of HarperCollins UK, and also author of The Dollhouse, The Girl Next Door, The Babysitter, and ever so soon, The Wild Girls.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much
Hello
for having me.
there.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. What day is this? It's a Friday. We normally we record these on a Sunday, so it's ever so odd.
Oh, I mean,
We've still got the whole weekend ahead.
Yeah.
This feels like a bumper start to the weekend. It's great.
Yeah, this is brilliant.
if I'm honest, I have
Yes.
totally lost track of the days recently with lockdown and the virus. The other day I had to ask my partner what day it was. I've got literally no idea most of the time. So could be Friday, could be Sunday, who knows?
I do spend a lot of time. The only thing that's on my calendar, which is terrible, is bins. That's what marks the day.
Oh,
And the other day, because everything had got a bit confused, I actually found myself writing on the calendar today, just so that I knew that today was today. Because every time I looked at the calendar, I thought it was a Monday. So that was weird.
that sounds like a bit of a new low there.
Yeah, no, I definitely I'd hit peak 2020 at that point. Today. What are you going to do tomorrow? I don't know. What day is it today? But still, we persist. Well, welcome to this to our lovely hour, slightly less than an hour of chat and joviality. For those who don't know, are you allowed to tell us a bit about the Wild Girls?
Yeah, I can. Thank you for mentioning that. It was exciting to hear you mention that because it's not out until April next year, so 2021. I was sort of hoping it would be published outside of the pandemic, but I feel like that might be a bit unlikely now because my third book came out in May, so the middle of the pandemic this year, and it actually was fine. But yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe next year it would all be okay. Anyway, going off on a slightly negative tangent. The Wild Girls is out in April. It's a thriller, and it is about 4 girls who haven't spoken to each other for 2 years, but are then invited to a birthday party out in Botswana. So they arrive at a safari lodge, only to find that the host is not there and the lodge is deserted, and they're on their own in the middle of the African wilderness. So it's a locked room mystery. It has these 4 main characters. You see what's happening from a couple of different points of view, and it's probably my favourite book that I've written so far. And I wrote most of it in the first lockdown, and it was just so great to write about somewhere so different because I was just sitting at my kitchen table next to the bin. In fact, talking about bins again, just typing away on my laptop. And I was kind of looking at all these amazing pictures of a luxury safari lodge in Botswana. So it was really escapist to write, and I hope that it will be escapist to read as well.
Oh, sounds magical.
That's amazing. Did you write it in lockdown? Did I pick up?
I wrote most of it in lockdown. I had already started it, I think, and then I wrote a lot of it in kind of March, April time, and it was actually really nice having that to do. And I know that people feel differently about this. I know some writers actually really struggled to be creative during that time, but I was quite lucky. I guess I felt the opposite, and I found like I suddenly had all this extra time to write. So I'm going to start the next one now that we're going into another lockdown.
Nice.
You found your writing vibe in the lockdown.
Yeah. I've suddenly got a much clearer diary, funnily enough.
Yeah, no, I think so. But I think that's interesting because we started, as everybody knows, we started this podcast on the first week of lockdown, and over the weeks it's been a recurring question: is can you or can't you? Are you or aren't you able to write? And some people they've got kids at home, or suddenly their partner's at home, and there's not as much peace. And for other people, I know Chris, Chris is normally teaching in primary school, and so for the first month or so before lessons had been properly worked out and planned, there's actually nothing you can do. You're just sitting at home suddenly you've got small kids, but you still get to write.
Yes, and I did.
I would say, I don't have children, so I am very, not lucky to not have good kids, but I'm lucky in that situation that I didn't have kind of other people depending on me at that stage. And I do, I have so much respect for all the writers and everyone that carried on working with small children bopping around. I think it must be really challenging. So I suppose it was maybe slightly easier because I didn't have that pressure. Although I have now just got 2 little kittens who are quite demanding of attention as well. So it's become slightly more difficult to write since I acquired the kittens because they have a bit of a habit of standing on my keyboard. And
I was going to say my top
causing
kitten
havoc.
management tip is to get a separate keyboard.
Yes,
and then
I've
put
heard
it in
this.
front of one of those old monitors that generates a lot more heat than an ergonomic one, and then they'll think they're working, but actually they're just keeping warm on the keyboard.
That's a great.
And then you can carry on.
That's a great idea. No, I do know what you mean with that. I think next to my office here, next to my desk, sorry, I don't have an office, is a glass door. And on the other side of that, we stupidly decided that would be the kids' playroom. So sometimes, either when I'm working, and it's worse when I'm doing something like this, I get a pair of little bum cheeks pressed against the glass down here. As they're just trying to put me off. And they can crack the door open. And I was live on, I think, I can't remember which radio station I was on. And my
such
middle
a
one
celebrity.
No, sorry, no. But we've all done the radio thing, haven't we? Yeah,
Radio Wessex.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was my 5-year-old cracked open the door and shouted "poo face" as loud as she could.
Oh my god!
And the host said, "I'm sorry, did a small child just call you a poo face?" Yes, that is.
Yeah,
and
that's
it could
what
only
we call
happen to me. There's the only way that would happen to me.
But the thing is, Rob, where did they learn that?
Oh, it's me. 100% it was me.
You taught them to say poo face, and you taught them to put their bottom against a window. So
I didn't do that. I definitely didn't do that.
I do quite like these little insights into people's lives we get though. Like I think on work calls and stuff like that, you see these glimpses into people's normal family lives, and it's just kind of a nice reminder that we're all human, and we're just all trying to get through this together, and it's quite funny a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Who were we talking to? Was it Susie Holiday said her husband had come out the shower behind her on a Zoom call with work, completely naked, and walked across. Which was like, oh no.
Now, I, as you might have noticed, not listeners, but my fellow guests on the screen here, I've enjoyed a couple of beverages since we started here, and that is down to the heart palpitations I'm feeling after finishing the babysitter this afternoon. It marmalised me. I honestly, the last, I would say 20%, my heart was here, just like, oh dear. And I'm terrible for spoilers, and I'm not going to do that at all. But I feel I wanted, because that was your last release, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's so nice to hear. Thank you so much for reading it. And I'm glad that it had that reaction on you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I've got next week is all therapy for me. So.
But yeah, no, that's the latest one. So that's the one that came out in May. So yeah, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. That's really, really nice to hear.
Well, no, it's when you mentioned that with the Wild Girls that's coming about the multi-perspective. I thought the way that you delivered the multi-perspective thing kept me guessing up to the point that literally when a certain thing happened, my world fell out. It just fell out. It was oh my God, I sat up. I was actually just lay on the bed upstairs waiting for the kids to come back from the schoolroom, and I sat up like, oh God, like that kind of thing. And then it was one of those where I wanted them not to come home so I could finish. So it's super. And I've got, I just had a look, and it's still flying high, isn't it, on on Amazon. So what a great success.
It's thank you. I mean, it's actually done better than I expected because of it coming out in the lockdown. And because everything I write is quite commercial and very commercial writer and publisher. So a lot of the sales come through the supermarkets, which is lucky, I suppose, in a pandemic because they stayed open, and people were able to still buy it during lockdown. And of course, online, I think the sales really worked. So that was really nice, and I think that it's been really interesting, because I'm always kind of obsessing over the charts because of my job, and I'm always very interested in like what readers are looking at and what they're doing during the lockdown and if their habits are changing. And it is interesting seeing how many people are turning to online instead. And I think, there's been this amazing initiative in the last week or so that I'm sure you've seen that Holly Vaughan has done to kind of support the independent sector and the high street bookshops. And I totally agree with that as well. And I think, it's amazing. And I'm, 100% supportive of it. But I do also think that it's great that people have been able to buy online when they couldn't get them anywhere else. I think that, of course, people have differing views on Amazon, and that's fine. But I think that the main thing for me is that people are reading. And I think, wherever you can get your books, it's amazing that books and publishing have been able to carry on during this really hard year. And it's not the same in every sector, obviously. And, I'm really lucky to have that job and for us all, to be able to carry on writing and to know that people are still buying books, wherever they can, is quite reassuring. So no, I was really happy with it, actually. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you how much you find your work in publishing influences what you decide to write. When because you said that you're a commercial writer, commercial publisher, but do you find yourself sort of trying to fit a zeitgeist, or you have an idea and go, I think this is going to fly? How many do you discard compared to the average writer?
In terms of my own ideas, I think so. With once I was out of contract, so I'm on my second contract now, I think, with HQ, who are my publisher. So once I was out, I'm on the third. I actually can't remember. Sorry. Anyway, when I did the most recent contract, I sent through like a couple of ideas to my agent, and so she, we discussed those, and then we sent them to the publisher. And then I think they weren't keen on like 2 out of the 3, and then the third one they wanted quite a lot of changes to. And then I came up with the Wild Girls idea, and then they were immediately like, yes, this is the one. And kind of it all went off from there. So I did discard a few at that stage. I would say I think I'm quite business minded about the publishing process, and so I wouldn't write. At this stage, I wouldn't write an entire book on the hope that someone would, unless things drastically change and, if I didn't have my agent or whatever. But I think, I want to make sure it's the right idea before I put in loads and loads and loads of legwork and a whole story, just because, I guess balancing it with a full-time job, there wouldn't really be time to like write a whole book, and if I wasn't sure that, someone would like it. So I wanted to do like the initial idea, and I did write a few sample chapters to make sure that they liked those. But yeah, I think I'm lucky to have an agent who's very happy to chat those kind of ideas through with me. And then in terms of how much it influences my job and vice versa, I think it definitely does. I think that, I am commercial, and I don't feel ashamed to say that sometimes I'll write for the market or write, what I think could do well. And if I have an idea that isn't very commercial, I probably won't let myself run with it. Or actually, I did have one idea which was like a few years ago, it was kind of a historical novel, so which wasn't what I was writing, isn't what I write at all. But I still really love the idea, and I did write a lot of that book. And my agent was kind of it just wasn't really the right thing to sell at that time, and so I did accept that, and we didn't sell it or try to sell it. But I sometimes think with ideas like that, I think, I'll just keep it in the drawer, and in 10 years time maybe it'll be something that I can whip out, it'll be the next big thing, or in a crazy dream I would be successful enough to just put it out there anyway. I mean, that won't happen, but you never know what will happen. So I do try and keep the market in mind, and I keep the publishing industry in mind when I'm writing. But I think with ideas, they don't need to go anywhere. Like, if you've got a good memory, or you've got a computer, or you've got somewhere to store them, it doesn't mean that you can't get them out further down the line, I suppose.
Yeah, fascinating. I love that idea that that sort of inside track, that and how that informs your writing process. I find really interesting.
Yeah. I think I spend so much time looking at what other authors are doing, and looking at the charts, and talking to agents and scouts, and it would be kind of very difficult to block all that out, and say, actually, I'm going to write completely against all of this advice, and I think that would be a bit like a tiny bit bonkers. So I do listen to them, and I find it really interesting in terms of what is selling and what doesn't sell and what readers' habits are, and so I guess I do my best to write something that I think people will want to read, and I think that I sometimes write little short stories and stuff like that at home, which I know that no one will ever really read. Maybe my mum will read them, and so that's just for the kind of fun of writing. But then when it comes to like the publishing side, I do want my books to be read, and that's really important to me. I mean, it hasn't got to be read by millions and millions of people, but it's got to be like more than just my immediate family. So yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you have a good enough relationship with your agent that you'll take that advice on top of you won't sort of sit and go, oh, this is what's trending now publishing wise, so I'll write one of those. You'll have ideas and then go and then talk it through with your agent and then take advice as to whether that is or isn't something that's going to sell right now.
Yeah,
so it's nice to be able to switch the two hats with advice from your job anyway. But
yeah, I think it does help. And the other thing is, we're always trying to predict the future as publishers. And I wish that I had a crystal ball, because I quite often get asked, what do you think is going to sell in 2022? And I'm like, I don't know. Please tell me so that I can buy it or write it. But I think that we do have to look ahead, and so something that might be a big trend now, by the time you've written it and published it and sold it, it could be kind of too late. So you do have to kind of think ahead and try and predict what readers are going to want in the next year or so, because as you guys know, like, the publishing process can take quite a long time.
So interesting though. I mean, because I was about to say, right, can we just after everyone's gone, as in the audience, can you just tell us what we should be writing? Would that be all right? so the three of us can go ahead and smash it next year. Would that be all right?
Good.
But like, do you ever look at things like current events and think, right, this will be this? There's a chance here. Like, should I be writing about a president that might not want to leave office? Should I be writing about that at this point?
Oh my god. I mean, you could write about that. Yeah, we do. I mean, we do look at current events, and we also look at past events, and we might try and marry things up and tap into something that a lot of readers are thinking about or talking about. So we look at publication dates quite a lot. Yeah, so I guess the short answer is we do look at events like that. And I actually had a really interesting manuscript today, which is a political thriller, which I can't say that much more about, but involving the sort of things that are potentially happening at the moment, and that's really interesting, and that made me really sit up and think, oh, this is interesting, because you can see and obviously the US election is a huge scale event, but even smaller events, you can see the kind of ripple effects that they have on society and readers. And sometimes it's reflected in podcasts or TV. And we're always trying to look at other forms of entertainment, because books are a form of entertainment. So if people are enjoying something on TV, it might mean they will enjoy it in a book as well. It might coincide with a kind of general public popular feeling. We do try and stay aware of
which is going to be really weird this year, because we don't have our autumn series of dramas, and we don't have our box sets, and we don't have all of the TV drama shooting stopped, didn't it? So we're going to have an autumn season of repeats of Mrs. Brown's Boys, basically.
Yeah.
People are going to need to read more, but all I mean by that is you don't suddenly go, oh God, everybody's into Downton. Thank God, now we can do historical fiction. Now we've got to nothing.
Yeah, it will be.
We have
will be weird.
Drama void.
Yeah, but I think it's quite interesting how people all jump on one particular thing at the same time, even if it's not new. You know, people jump on a particular TV show and it might not even be a new one, but everyone starts watching it at the same time. And I guess social media amplifies that. And we're probably in a bit of a bubble on social media, to be honest, aren't we? But I think it's interesting seeing people all talk about the same program or the same book or anything like that, and then it makes you want to talk about it or read it or watch it as well. So it's kind of a knock-on effect, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you get? I hope this comes out right. But do you get the same amount of satisfaction in your editorial work as you do in your author work, and vice versa?
I probably, if I'm really honest, get more out of the editorial work just because it's, I suppose because it's my career and the writing stuff is amazing and I'm really lucky to be able to do both, but I know that the writing could go away at any point. I mean, I suppose I could get fired, but I'm hoping that that's not going to happen. And so I think my career as a publisher is more of something that, you know, I spend so much time on it. You know, it's a 9 to 5 job, but it's not really a 9 to 5 job because you work so many hours outside of that, reading and emailing and all that sort of thing. And I'm really close to my colleagues and my team at work. And so I love being part of that team. And I think that's why I found this year really hard working at home. And so that is really important to me. And the writing is important, but it's obviously a much more solitary business, just sitting there on your own with your laptop, and it's also not really in my control. You know, I try and write the best books that I can and I try and promote them and all that sort of thing, but at the end of the day I can't make readers buy them. I have tried, but I can't blackmail people anymore. Whereas I guess like a publishing career is something that I'm trying harder to control, and it's more straightforward, and I put maybe slightly more into it. Yeah.
So to spin that same question, somebody did it to me once with film writing versus novel writing. But if you could win an award for either, which one would make you feel like you'd achieved your life goal?
Oh, that's such an interesting question.
It is, isn't it? Nice one.
Well,
it's horrid because it haunts you later when.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be. I suppose I never think I would win an award for my writing because it's not very literary. And I suppose in my head, I think that all the awards go to the literary writers, which actually isn't true because you do have, you know, amazing crime festivals doing lots of awards and more commercial awards now. But I just can't really imagine that I would ever get one. So I suppose that would probably mean quite a lot to me if I did, because I would be really surprised. But who knows? If anyone wants to give me an award, I'll be here waiting.
The best guest on a podcast.
Yes, we just so happen to have one ready. What trophy was that? Was that a little boat?
It's a little boat from Africa made of beads.
Lovely.
Even though but no, just go over that.
I like that.
Can I ask, how do you plan a book with like multiple points of view? Like, do you think how the character would speak, and do you find it difficult to like sort of find the voices or whatever?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think I always write in different points of view. I think in all of my novels I have done that. I really like, do you know what? I actually think I do it because I get a bit bored of writing in one point of view. And so I think, I'll just change it up now and write a different point of view. And then I get this kind of burst of energy because I'm in a different character's head. So I don't necessarily plan it, but what I have to do is I have to go back quite a lot and check that I'm kind of giving enough airtime to each character if they need it. And so I do a lot of kind of color coding and highlighting to check that the characters are switching perspectives at a good enough pace, and that, they're each getting their space on the page. With the Wild Girls, I have these quite similar female voices, and so when I handed in the first draft to my editor is Kate Mills at HQ, and she's amazing, and she was like, oh, it's great, but all these voices sound really, really similar. And so she said that thing that probably all writers dread, which was, can you change some of them to third person instead of first person. So I was like, yep, no problem. And then spent like, the whole week going through changing all the endings of the words, and trying to catch every single pronoun. But actually I was so glad that I did it, because I think she was totally right. And now the voices are much more distinct. But that kind of stuff is hard, because it's really, especially because, I'm not very imaginative. I write about women that are kind of similar age and, background to myself, which is probably something I should branch out in more. But it's very easy to start just sounding like yourself. And so I do have to work harder if the characters are different. And I'm not very good at writing men. Like I have a couple of male perspectives in my first book, and a little bit in the latest book, but I always really struggle with that. I find it much harder to write in a male voice, and so I always get feedback on that from my agent.
I want. This is probably the only time this has ever happened on the podcast, but I'm going to disagree with the guest here. I think you're selling yourself short here, Phoebe. I really do. No, I really do. I think because the character of Callum in The Babysitter, it does not feel like I believed him in totally.
Did you? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, massively. But also that, I mean, like. Right, so let's go to the pacing issue. I mean, yeah, the pacing in it was perfect, and then the multiple perspective thing. I got used to the cast, and then you gave us a perspective from somebody else. I was like, well, now what the hell's going on here? That kind of thing. Where are we going now? And it really, really threw me in the best way. So I think you're selling yourself short. I really, really enjoyed what I read.
Oh, well, thank you. So, I mean, I think...
I did. Yeah, it was great.
It is. I mean, maybe it's something that I'm glad that it's not obvious, but I think it's something that sort of internally I always feel isn't my strongest point, writing from the male perspective. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I do think it helps with pacing when you have multiple narrators, because it just provides. And also I wonder if actually, I was thinking about this earlier in the week, so I was talking to one of my authors about it, and I was thinking, are we just all so used to reading these books with multiple narrators that we kind of expect it, and actually then when it's not there it feels flat, or it feels like it's not pacey enough. So I don't know if it's just something we've all trained ourselves to do, because so many psychological thrillers do have those very different quick perspective changes. I don't know.
I do think there's definitely something very strong in that. I think one of the reasons that I loved Sharon Bearden's upcoming novel Sins of the Father is that it features a kid with dissociative identity disorder. So from that single perspective, there are multiple voices speaking.
That's interesting.
And it's quite hard to pin down who's in charge of the narrative voice at the time.
I think it works so well in that.
And it's incredible because you're actually still, I mean, if you were filming it, it'd still be the same lead character. But there are actual identifiable personalities within that as you read on, you learn to understand. And it's so difficult to pull off. And it's at times a stream of consciousness and, sort of running on sentences and things. And it's just, you just have to flow with it. But actually it's really hard. It's the best and worst of the unreliable narrative voice, all in one character. It's flipping everywhere.
I know I've harped on about The Babysitter a bit now, but this is another thing though that we talk. I know. I'm sorry. I try not to fawn on the podcast.
Well, you are genuinely going to get the fanboy badge for this one.
Honestly, no. But I'm still mad because my heart's not come back. It's not come back to where it's supposed to be. But there was it wasn't just a question of different perspectives, but different points in time that these perspectives came from, which kept me as a reader on my toes. But it also gave me a very complete picture and made for a very fulfilling experience as a reader. So I felt like so that when things took a turn and when things went places I was not expecting, it really, really nailed me because I was really invested in where I was up to at that point. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
I'm going to say it makes sense.
It definitely makes sense, and it's really nice to hear. I think that, I try and do different timelines as well. So in the Wild Girls, there's a split timeline, and it always takes me ages to work out because I'm so terrible at maths. So I always make these stupid mistakes about, like, the months or the days, and then someone will be like, well, this makes absolutely no sense. And, so I have to work quite hard at making the timelines work. And I couldn't do anything more complicated. There's some amazing books that have got, loads of different timelines going on, and mine is usually like 2, maximum 3, and then I'm like, wow, I've really pushed the boat out here. But I do think that it can help with pacing, but I think you do have to work to make sure that it's not confusing, and because my kind of pet hate when I'm reading is, I can't think of an example, but when you're kind of flipping back through the pages and you're just like, who's speaking now, or like what time frame is this in, and that's really distracting, I think. So I do think that you have to work at it to make it clear for the reader, because otherwise, you want them focusing on the plot and the characters and the actual story. You don't want them like turning back the pages and being like, where am I, what's going on? So I think you have to be careful of that.
I can hear dogs wrestling upstairs, which is my equivalent of children. Basically, they've just had their food, and there's a half hour of absolute silly season where they wrestle the crap out of each other.
How many dogs have you got?
Just the 2, unbelievably. They do they're big and they make a lot of noise. And the wrestling is full on, and they have to sing through it. So you get this for half an hour.
Very tuneful.
Who wrestles after they eat? It's a crazy decision.
Well, these two, they just, when you give your kids all of the sugar and a fizzy drink, and then go, now sit still because Granny wants to read her book. That's what happened upstairs.
Is that what you call yourself?
Not a good idea.
No, but that's the only person who gets cross when the kids are noisy when she wants to read her book. The rest of us are just like, whatever. Kids dogs are flying. It's like that. It's just like that. Anyway, I apologize for any random hippo wrestling upstairs. It's just...
No, it's fine. My kittens wrestle as well. It's really weird. They play fight. Oh, I can hear that one now. Yeah, they were play fighting earlier. They were wrestling, and then they just fell off the bed like together in this like ball of fur, just bang on the floor. It's quite funny. Yeah.
Just tussle a Tasmanian devil on the floor.
Yeah, that's what they're like.
Are they very small, your kittens?
They're quite small. How old are they? They're like 4 months now. They're born in like June, July. That's really my bad maths, you see. It's like a couple of months. We got them in September, so I haven't had them very long. I'm really obsessed with them. That's why I keep mentioning them. I've got mentionitis. But yeah, so they are quite small. But they've grown quite big. They've grown quite quickly. You always want them to be like tiny little babies forever, but they have grown quite quickly. I think we're probably overfeeding them. Yeah, big. They've got big green eyes. They are very cute.
They might just have their winter fur on. They might not be putting on as much weight as you think. Spray them with a bottle and see how they like it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Kittens don't like that.
What's our very random question? But what is our position on dogs eating pasta?
Oh,
aren't you pleased you came, Phoebe?
I am. I wasn't expecting that.
No.
Well, I mean, we ask every guest this. No, we don't. It's never been asked.
Do I think they should eat pasta? I don't know. Is it good? Is it good for them?
They're not designed to eat pasta, Rob. They're designed to eat animals.
Well, context-wise, mine did eat pasta, and it's got a particular, like where 2 cushions of a sofa meet. It likes to put its face in between the cushions and vomit.
Oh my god!
So I only found out this last night because I was like, "What stinks in here?" And I found a load of pre-digested pasta in a crack in the sofa.
I think you've answered your own "should a dog eat pasta" question.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering whether it was something else, but I'm fairly sure we've got there now. Thank you. Learning all the time.
Back to the books, everyone.
Yeah.
Don't we have some questions from Twitter that you could bring us back on track with?
I do. I was going to ask a question first, though, and it might be a question where you say you can't comment because it might show favoritism or whatever, but are there 3 books that you are publishing next year that you are especially excited about?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm excited about Girl A. So is Rob, as he's mentioned.
I've read it.
Yeah, you have. Thank you. So yeah, Girl A is by Abigail Dean. It's out in hardback in January 2021, and it's amazing. She's such a talented writer. It's about a girl called Lex Gracie who escapes from her family's house of horrors and alerts the authorities, who then rescue herself and her 6 siblings from the house. And it's a dual timeline, and it's her as an adult and her siblings looking back on the kind of childhood trauma that they went through. And it sounds really dark, and it is really dark, but it's also really hopeful, and it's really redemptive, and it's about love and sibling relationships, and it's quite a complicated book, but I think it's just phenomenal. I think she's such a talented author, and I'm so excited to publish her. So that's Girl A. What else am I excited about? Lots. I've got one coming out next week called The Chalet, which is by Catherine Cooper, which I think you read as well, Chris. Thank you. And that's a really fun locked room mystery set in the French Alps about a group of people who go on a doomed skiing holiday. And that's just so much fun to read. It's really twisty, a lot of snow, a lot of champagne, a lot of murder. So I'm really excited to publish that as well. And then I'm just thinking of the third one. So I'm also publishing one called Sleep Tight by C.S. Green in March. And that is a police procedural with a supernatural twist. And I'm really excited about that because it's a bit different. And there's a lot of police procedural out there, obviously, a lot of really amazing writers. But I love the way that Caroline is her name, adds this supernatural element to it. And it's basically about a secret division of the Met Police who focus only on supernatural crimes. And it's about a killer who targets his victims through their dreams, which I think is a great hook. And she's done a phenomenal job. So those are 3, but I'm really excited to publish all of my authors. And those are the 3 that came to me first. But if you're listening, you're all amazing. And there's lots more.
Oh, it's just so hard, isn't it? Where you just think, oh, everybody's amazing, but this one's also exciting.
Yeah.
And also
I've read all 3 of those, and they are all incredible. There was a bit, and I wasn't sure whether I was allowed to say, but you mentioned that she escaped in Girl A, and that bit felt like I'm going to ruin Room here, but the bit where I don't know if I can say it, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know the bit you mean. Yeah,
that bit was like,
don't ruin anything.
I have not felt that in the book since I watched that film, and that bit where she is trying to escape is like flipping incredible writing.
It's so good, isn't it? Yeah, I'm so glad that you liked it as well. Yeah, I think the bit when she's like trying to get out the window and she's like pushing through the glass. I think about it a lot actually, and every time I talk about Girl A, I want to read it again, even though I've read it like 10 times. So, which I think is the sign of a really good book. I hope.
Yeah, I read it sort of 2 parts.
It's Rob. Yeah, you can put your ears back in.
Okay.
I didn't realise he'd taken them out. So
I don't want
he was just sort of pointing it. And I was like, why are you pointing at me?
I know, it's pointing at Sean like, can I come back?
I don't know. I didn't even know you'd taken your ears out.
I know, yeah.
We've got Abigail coming on and Caroline as well, sort of around publication dates. So, yeah, I can't wait to talk to both of them.
Great. Yeah, they'll both be brilliant, I hope. I'm sure they will. Yes.
Abigail's from lives in Manchester, doesn't she?
She lives in London now, but she is from Manchester, and she used to work at the Waterstones in Manchester. And I don't know if you saw, but we're doing these amazing special editions for Waterstones, which have yellow sprayed edges, which is very exciting because I love a sprayed edge.
I saw them. I love a sprayed edge.
Yeah, they look good.
Sorry, Chris, we can't afford sprayed edges unless you come round with your can of spray paint and a stencil. You're on your own. We're an indie publisher. We can't do this kind of shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that in the industry they're called spreadges. That's
nice.
Yeah,
some people use that term. Yeah.
I'm going to use it all the time, like for sandwiches. You know, like can I have them with spreads? I don't know what it might mean. You know, don't spray the edge of my sandwich with
Food
paint.
colouring.
Don't do that. But yeah.
So I've got a Twitter question from Lauren North.
Okay.
Who?
Hey, Lauren.
Yeah, lovely. She said, now you are working from home more. Do you find it harder to divide your time as editor and as author?
Well, first off, I really don't like working from home. I think I said I've also moaned about this to pretty much everyone I know for about 8 months. I really miss the office. I'm a really sociable person, and so I just find it quite difficult not being around my colleagues. And publishing is such a team business that I think we are really collaborative, and we, so many people go into making a book a success. It's not just the editor. And so I think it is harder to do that from home. And we have pivoted really well. We have all our meetings online on Microsoft Teams, and, we're doing everything in the same way, but it's just not the same feeling. So that's kind of tough, but it's not the end of the world. And I suppose it's kind of calmed down a bit now because I've got more used to it. But I think in like March, April, basically all the publishers were just, frantically trying to think how we could turn the situation around and where we were going to sell our books. And that's why I was mentioning earlier how grateful I am to, the fact that people can buy them online, because if this had happened, 10, 15 years ago and ebooks were not a thing and audiobooks were not a thing, it would be so much harder. So we spent a lot of that time just working on our metadata and our pricing and trying to make sure our books were as visible as possible online, and doing as much as we could to support the authors. So that was quite stressful, and I feel like I didn't have very much time for writing during the week during that time. But now it's calmed down a bit, so I can still do a bit of writing. And I haven't been doing much for the last month or so because I've just been waiting for the copy edits for the Wild Girls. But I've got those now, and then I'm going to start book 5, which will be a good project. And I kind of tend to write in bursts. Like I go through like 4 months of writing really intensely, and then I have like a few months where I'm not really doing very much apart from like bits of editing and that sort of thing. I'm not really one of those people who writes every day, like Stephen King writes every day apart from Christmas or something, or maybe he even does Christmas, I can't remember. But I'm not as good as that, basically. Do you guys all write every day? Do you?
No.
Okay.
I can't because I publish, but unlike a big publisher, I have to do most of it myself. So most of the day when I am writing, I try and do my writing in the morning. So I do 3 hours, try and get a couple of thousand words out, and then do all of the publishing work for the rest of the day and into the night. But I guess because I sort of kind of closed down a series, not that it will never come back, but I was just like, I think I've told the stories that this series wants to hear.
Yeah.
And I closed down another one at the same time. I don't have I've got one that I'm working on, but I've been working on it for years now. And it's really hard, and it's really long, and it's really complicated, and it's totally outside of everything I normally write and outside of everything we publish. So I don't know where it goes.
Oh, it sounds good. It's exciting.
It is exciting, but to find the creative time to do that, as well as just having all of these, like, you've got to do these things.
Yeah.
I find tough. And I guess that balance for me, and that's not a new thing because of lockdown. I've worked from home for the last 15 years. So this is no new scenario, but what it definitely is much harder to publish 17 authors and on your own and write your own books.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big undertaking. It's very impressive. But that's the thing.
Not really. It's just tough.
Publishing is so much more than just the writing, isn't it? And there's so much more you have to do and think about, and you're doing the covers and you're doing the copy and you're doing the sales side. So it's not as simple as just bashing the book out. Definitely.
No, and but it's also just the more. The big you can sort of do the covers and the copies and you can outsource those if you need to, or you can do them yourself and enjoy it. But then getting them in front of readers is just tough when you're little.
Yeah, of course.
It's just you kind of go, this is the most amazing book, and there's a load of noise about it on social, and you're like, you're selling in the hundreds and thousands rather than the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and you're like, damn, come on, people, we need to work harder. There's no time.
Well, I think
Anyway,
I think it's
that's not
interesting
lockdown.
because
That's just me moaning.
no, it's not. I think it's interesting though because it's kind of what I was saying before about how you can't always control the writing and the publishing process. Like you can put these books out and you hope that they do well, and we hope they do well, and the writer does, but then ultimately we're kind of beholden to the reader, and sometimes I've seen really really amazing books not sell, and it's so heartbreaking because you think this book is amazing, the writer is amazing, everything has been done correctly, and then for whatever reason it doesn't catch.
And all you can hope for is that another book in their line will catch.
Yeah.
And it's just, it is literally just like, this is the moment that nobody can predict, but you've hit a moment. It's a kind of hitting a 50 Shades of Grey at exactly the same time as Kindle comes out, so everybody can read it on the tube and nobody knows what they're reading, and it's all a bit of sort of filthy fast.
Yeah.
But it's and it's just it's cheap and it's knocked out, but everybody's reading it, and if enough people buy something for 99p, then happy days.
I know totally what you mean, and Sean, I'll offer to edit this episode because I'm about to say we'll have to take this bit out. But
yes, you edit. Please take out the bit that you.
Yeah, well, no, it only so I can sort of manage the amount of wow wee wows I throw in here today. So we can take out extra of those. But I know just what you mean about like that. I thought it was just going to be absolutely gigantic. It was fabulous, and I just like it's. I think it's like reviews on Goodreads or something like that, which is not a barometer for success, but it's like clearly not enough people are reading that book. It's absolutely crazy because that was one of the most original things I'd ever seen.
It is weird.
I even honestly, I was just like blown away.
It's a gorgeous book. It wouldn't necessarily have been published by a mainstream publisher, and it will never get the kind of airtime that it would require to sell enough copies to generate. But you kind of have to look at things in a. We used to do it. It was horrible. We used to do it when we were doing digital production as well, and that you go, if you're taking 100% of your audience, 90% will watch, 9% will engage, as in they'll comment, like, and share, and 1% will buy. And if you use that as a model, but it's true. But if you analyze your web traffic or your email traffic or people, if you do a mail shot and how many people buy, it'll be 1% if you're lucky of the people you hit that buy, and 9-10% will engage with the email and come and look at the site and look at the new book, and it's just, you just have to have enough numbers then to make that 1% into a valuable resource. We're getting into digital marketing advice here, people.
But genuinely, I think our listeners genuinely like this look behind the curtain. I think they do like this, and because I do. So
I find it really interesting.
Yeah, I do. But I think because we get listened to by loads of authors, but readers as well, and loads of readers who are in the process of becoming authors as well. And this anything that gives an insight into the industry is a good thing, I think, and a bit more transparency there is really good. Is that statistic of 1% might really click the button or whatever? I always wonder how many people review on places like Amazon and Goodreads and stuff like that, like what percentage that is of overall purchase. I always wonder that. Is there anything that do you have a figure in your head, Phoebe, about like when you look at how something's performing on places like that?
Yeah.
Does that mean anything in a sales sense?
So I think it does. I mean, it's much more of a marketing area than editorial, but our marketing team will run a lot of Facebook ads, and we'll be able to see the click-through rate and that sort of thing, and I think you can get a pixel which shows what the conversion rate is from people looking at it and then actually pressing the buy button. I've never been able to make that work myself, but I think probably HarperCollins can. And we do like a lot of consumer insight, and we have like a consumer insight team who will run things past a kind of panel of readers, and I find that part really interesting. So they'll give them like 5 different examples of copy and 5 different covers and 5 different taglines, and say, which one are you most drawn to, which one is your least favorite and why, and what would make you buy this book, and that the results of that are always really, really fascinating. And I think you do have to work pretty hard to get someone to buy a book. And I also think that we put out a lot of books at 99p, and the market is there, and it's a really competitive market, and so we go with it, and we're quite aggressive in terms of our pricing. But then I think what happens is that then and I do it, I mean, I'm a massive ebook reader, so I'll buy a lot of ebooks, but then you click on something and you're like, $9.99 for an ebook, oh my god, that's so expensive. Because we've all been so conditioned to think that these books are priced low. But then when you think about it, think how much time we've all spent on this book, and it's being sold for less than like a chocolate bar. And I'm not, I'm as guilty as anyone for doing it. And I'm not, I think we have to be sensible and savvy. We have to go where the market is, and you can accumulate a lot of sales at 99p, and you get that cut through, and you get the readership. So I'm a big fan of doing it. But if I really think about it from an author perspective, I totally get it. You're getting a really small percentage of that money, and it's kind of sad that your book is being sold for such a small price.
But also from a sales perspective, you kind of go for, if you're doing a 99p deal, if you're doing $1.99, you can take 70% of the profit off an Amazon deal. If you're doing a 99p deal, you can only take 35 as the publisher. So then your author, and our authors are on around 35% on ebooks and 25% on paperbacks. So they get good royalties, but you're getting 25% of our 35p. So,
you got to sell.
Every sale is great, but those people really need to review, and you need to convert those into moving the algorithm somewhere, because otherwise you gain a whole lot of chart position, or you gain a whole lot of something else, but actually fiscally it doesn't work out. But it
is, and I really like it. It's a long game as well, isn't it? The 99p model, isn't it? Because I remember, I think the first 5 books that I ever had out, I kept talking to my publisher's Loom about, I've never got a problem. If you ever want to make them 99p, I've never got a problem, because it's a long game of getting as many people through the door and getting acquainted with the work than anything else. And I also think that as a writer, it's a really nice thing to have, and I hope this metaphor comes out right, but a small piece of, to have relatively small piece of a bigger pie than the biggest piece of a very small nugget. If you know what I mean. So
it's better to have 35% of a pound than 100% of no pound.
Exactly. Dude, you should be a writer.
I mean,
you think?
I think what's happened with the ebook market is that it's become irreversible, to be honest, because I think now that we have done, and not just us, but everyone has kind of gone to this low price model, you can't really go against it, because I think when in my experience, if you put out a book that's at a much, much higher price, it's just not going to sell unless you're J.K. Rowling or whoever. And so realistically, you're not doing the right thing for the author to price their book at that level, because it's realistically not really going to sell many copies. And you're right, it is a long game. And like, I work with authors who are on their 5th or 6th books, and now they are at a slightly higher price, and that's great. And we don't have to start them at 99p. But I think a lot of the time, the strategy around a debut is to try and get it into one of those deals, or to put it out at that low price, because that is where the market is. And I think it would be kind of foolish to deny that. Like I said, I think we've gone too far down that track to be able to come back from it now, really.
I had a really interesting thing that my first 2 novels were published by a German publisher, and what was really big in Germany on Amazon at the time, and maybe still is, I don't know, was to publish things as a serialized thing. So they took the code, which is 120,000 words, and they published it in 6 20,000 word chunks, which worked well in Germany, because the German market is used to a serialized novel, and in the UK and the US, which they did it in as well, because it's written in English, obviously. they were all just like, well, this is a scam because it's only a few chapters of a book, and then you've got to pay. And then if you buy the whole thing, it's like this many, because they were putting them out at like $1.99 per section. And you're just like, this is so weird because it's written as a book, and now you've serialized it, but now you're charging people $1.99 per chunk. And so all of the Amazon, well, not all of them, but loads of the Amazon reviews were like, this isn't even a whole book. This is just, this is the writer trying to scam us out of money. And you're like, well, the writer's getting fuck all for this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The writer's getting 10% of fuck all for this.
You do have to be careful.
But the publisher's doing something weird.
Yeah. I think with stuff like that, it's interesting because sometimes we do things like free samplers. So we do like a little free section of the book and we put that on Amazon, and we have to make it so clear that it's a free sampler because you still get those people reviewing it and saying 1 star, this was not a complete book, and we're like, well, it's a sampler and you've literally paid nothing for it.
Yes, you fucking idiot, it was a sampler.
But people don't always hook on to that quickly.
No, well, I mean, people can buy the whole book and get a 1-star review, can't they, Chris?
Speaking of 1 stars, this is beautiful.
I was just going to say this is the most seamless segue of all time.
That is incredible. So, Phoebe, we play a game called One Superstar, where I read a 1-star review and you have to try and guess what book it is.
From any book of all time?
Sean is very quick at this. So
yeah, Sean's the sheriff of these parts. I'm the village idiot. So he's the benchmark.
Okay.
I'm going to leave out one of the words because it will totally give it away. So I will say blank, but that's not part of the review, obviously.
Is it the
title? So this is
Don't read blank. It's not very good.
1 star. Would have given it 0 if possible. Utterly boring. From B. Kelly. OMG, I hated this book. The single most boring, smarmy book I have ever almost read. It's like a 14-year-old science genius wants to impress his peers with a very detailed plan of how to survive on blank. Calculations and scientific trials explained in minute detail while we learn nothing about the main character. He has no emotions and could even be called a robot called Ford Prefect. Subjected myself to 20% of this torture, then abandoned.
That is vicious.
It is, and it's a fantastic book, I thought.
You actually slightly cut out in the middle, so I actually don't. I missed like a tiny bit of it. And
I did too. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, it was my internet. Maybe.
I had some. No. I had the most vicious parts of it. Oh God, I don't know. My mind's gone really blank.
Can we have a year for the book?
That review was from 2020. I think the book's from around 2015.
Oh, so is that quite recent?
I could be wrong. I'll check.
Is it The Martian?
Is it what? What did you say?
It is The Martian.
Oh,
yeah.
Sean! Honestly, Sean!
I'm sorry.
How do you do this? The sheriff!
Well done.
You walked down Main Street and popped me and Phoebe off.
That was
good. Honest.
When you
Incredible.
When you first started, I thought it was going to be like Adrian Mole or something because you were talking about like a 14-year-old ramblings, and I thought maybe it was like a really classic book. But not when it went on the science route. I was thrown off.
Now, do you want to guess what the?
You know what? I think I can do this game quite. Carry on.
I was just going to say, can you guess what the blank word was? But I don't know if you even heard that sentence.
Potatoes.
Mars, I would imagine.
It was Mars.
Or potatoes.
Oh God! Well done. That was so impressive.
He's so good, isn't he? That's fantastic. I loved it.
That was incredibly impressive. Very good guessing.
The thing is that sometimes I just sometimes it's what I tune into is what I'm being annoyed by when reading the book. That's definitely been the thing for the last 3. Sorry to ruin the game again.
Well, I will look out for one star reviews from you.
Phoebe, if you ever get any good ones for whatever, send me them, and because I'm sort of at the point now where I think, have I used this already?
That's what I want to know, Phoebe. What's your favourite of your own 1 stars?
Let me quickly look. I definitely have had a couple. I normally tweet them because I actually do think they're quite funny. Let me just quickly look in case there's any funny ones for Babysitter. I've had a couple where they just haven't finished it, and I guess it's a bit frustrating, but it's also quite amusing. Let me just look. Oh, my internet seems so slow. I can't even get it on my phone. I have a woman called Margaret who quite often leaves me bad reviews. I don't know who she is. So if you're listening, Margaret, she's providing me with entertainment. Okay, here we go. Hang on. Right, I've got 1% of 1-star reviews. Okay, so this one, 1 star, awful. I have read another one of her books which was good, but this one, thumb facing down. Too many corny lines and cliches. So that was a bit upsetting. And then I had another one that said 1 star, unable to download. So that was a 1 star. Thanks for that.
I love it when they review their own ability.
And then I had one which had loads of spoilers in. Yeah, I had one that had loads and loads of spoilers in, so I'm not going to read that out. So it's a bit unfair, that one. But what I like doing, I don't know if you guys do this, is I click on the reviewer and then I see what else they've reviewed. And sometimes they've reviewed like cat food or like an electric toothbrush. And that makes me feel better.
These are the people that I'm, like... your motivations to write. My motivations have changed. I now write for these people. Just to make these people angry or upset, I think. Yeah, basically.
Just to annoy them. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You always wait for that 1 star because I think with the Babysitter I had quite a while. I had like a good run of a few months where I was not getting any bad reviews, and then you get that first one and you're like, okay, here it comes.
I don't think a book's made it until you've got the 1 star. Seriously, I don't think you've
yeah,
connected.
You're right.
Or in Chris's case, some really an inflatable seagull, I think, was.
Yes, the inflatable seagull apparently is better than your debut, Chris. Sadly,
and my twee book.
These people are so great.
Not that it stayed in your head at all.
What are you reading at the minute, Phoebe?
What am I reading? I'm reading submissions because I am. So for the last year, I've been working across 2 divisions at Harper. So I've been working across Avon and Harper Fiction. But my job is changing next week, where I'm just going to work on Harper Fiction because someone's coming back from mat leave. So I did like a bit of a call out to agents the other day to ask for submissions, which is possibly a mistake because now they've all sent me quite a lot of submissions, and now I have quite a lot of reading. But yeah, so I'm reading some really good ones, which is exciting. I'm also really slowly reading the new Cara Hunter book, which is called The Whole Truth. And I love her. I think she's great. And I'm taking ages to read it because it's a paperback, and I'm so used to reading on my Kindle that I'm really slow at reading paperbacks because I live with my partner, and so he wants to go to sleep, so I turn the light out and then I can't read. Whereas the beauty of my Kindle is it has the backlight. Anyway, sorry, I can talk about my Kindle for ages. I'm really obsessed with how amazing it is. I just still think it's so great that we can have like hundreds of books on a Kindle and take it everywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm a recent convert.
Are you? Yeah, I'm a big fan. But yeah, so I'm reading Cara Hunter for pleasure and a lot of submissions for work.
Well, yes, this week, obviously, just today I finished The Babysitter by a certain Phoebe Morgan, which I thought was fabulous. I also this week finished The Cuckoo Wood by Mr. Sean Coleman. Which Sean, you don't shout about your books very much, man.
No.
When in fact they're really flipping good.
Bless you.
This was really, really elegant and lovely, right up my street in terms of a mystery that has like an element to it that I can't put my finger on, because of something that you offer things to the imagination and let the imagination go forward from there. And I love stuff like that. So I really, really enjoyed this week. The Cuckoo Wood. It's the first in the Alex Ripley's. You've got to go get it.
Oh, thank you, Rob.
I will.
No,
that was such a good description.
No, but Sean, you were a flipping good writer, man. And yeah, it's great. I really enjoyed it.
I can't promote my own books. I'm very good at promoting yours. That's fine. But I can't do my own.
Well, you should, because it was great.
I'm going to buy it after this podcast. So
yay!
There you go. There you go. I know I know we're not supposed to name too many books, but I just sometimes I get really, really intimidated by an author's back catalogue. You know, especially if they're absolutely mega.
Yeah.
And I've been too scared to touch Michael Connolly because a number of reasons, but one is mainly that the back catalogue is so big that I know I'm going to love it and I know it'll cost me a fortune to get everything. But also, and it's your time as well. You know, like I try and read like 50 books a year, and that's his body of work. So that's a year that I'm signing away. But so I picked up The Poet, and oh my God, it's just astonishing. And if I ever had any, like, well, you know, I've never read him, so I wonder, he must be top of the game, you know, at the top of the tree for a reason. Holy hell, yes. It's just, it's an iconic piece of work.
Where does The Poet sit in terms of that whole? Is it?
It's in. Apparently, it's in there, but I'm not quite sure where. But I picked it because it's the first of the Jack McAvoy books, and I thought that would be a good place to start, just as a dive-in point. The first of one of his universes. So yeah, I picked that one. And I mean, it's just astonishing. Yeah, and I got a cheeky tweet from him yesterday.
I saw that.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you think it's a media manager or is it the real dude? And if it's the real dude, Michael, let's talk. Come on.
Well, I'm not sure he's listening to the podcast. Why didn't you do what Chris said and invite him on? That's what Chris said.
I mean, he crucially didn't follow me in the exchange, which is quite gutting. But this famously is the podcast that turned down Will Smith a few weeks ago. So.
Did you?
No.
Oh.
Sorry, Phoebe.
I'm so gullible.
Phoebe, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is nonsense. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye and good luck for the Wild Girls when they come to us.
Thank
Feet
you.
stomping.
Yeah, can't wait.
There's not that much stomping in it, but no, I wish there was.
There must be good African feet stomping in the Wild Girls.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you. I love this podcast, and yeah, you're all brilliant. So thank you. It's a real privilege to come on.
Well, thank you for coming.
Flipping heck.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.